quiet. She intends it to be strong, a safeguard for her self-respect, a space for her to reflect, miss you, or even feel regret for her actions. You've heard it before. Pull back and be quiet, and she'll come running. But what happens when he or she doesn't say anything in response to your silence? You feel like you're yelling into the empty space, and she doesn't seem to be paying attention. If you've been here feeling angry, confused, and wondering why there's so much silence, you know what I mean. You're not alone if the supposed solution is actually exacerbating your problems. Silence can be a powerful tool, but only when used correctly. It may be time to investigate why it's not working and what to do next. In this video, we'll explain why your silence may not be working, the mistakes you're making, and most importantly, how to change things and regain your power. Let's start. Your power is still chasing. Even when you're not talking to her, she can sense your continued focus on her through your thoughts, feelings, and actions. Although you may perceive yourself as quiet, your energy conveys a different message. For instance, even if you cease calling, texting, or reaching out to her, but continue to monitor her social media and speculate about her whereabouts or activities, an intangible bond still binds you to her. And surprisingly, others can discern a lack of genuine interest in your silence. It is ineffective to attempt to extinguish a fire while simultaneously adding fuel to it. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic thinkers, often reminded himself not to waste time or energy on things he couldn't change. Now, think about your situation. Is she under your control? Is her attention or approval something you can really command? Of course not. What you can control is where your energy goes. Are you working on your goals and your peace of mind? Or are you letting her still control your thoughts, even when you're not talking to her? Silence doesn't just mean not talking or texting. It also means shifting your attention. Silence is powerful when you reclaim your energy and direct it toward becoming a stronger, better version of yourself. Let me give you an example. Imagine a man who ends a relationship. If he spends his days working on his health, learning new skills, and pursuing his interests, his energy changes. He's no longer chasing, he's building. His silence now carries weight, bolstered by true self-control and inner strength. She notices a different kind of silence, one that doesn't stem from playing games or waiting for a reaction. Ask yourself where your energy is going right now. If your energy remains attached to her, it's time to sever it, not out of resentment, but out of reverence for your personal tranquility. As soon as you start living for yourself again, your silence changes. It becomes a sign of your growth, not a way to get her back. Mastering yourself is the first step to mastering life and relationships. Make her feel your absence through silence and the strength and focus of not chasing her. That's how you make an impact. Number 2. She hasn't yet recognized your worth. If your silence doesn't mean much to her, it's because your presence didn't stick with her. We don't intend to diminish you. Rather, it presents an opportunity for personal growth. You see, Stoicism emphasizes controlling what you can. Marcus Aurelius said, "Don't waste time arguing about what a decent man should be." The question isn't why she doesn't care about your silence. The question is whether you have grown into someone she would miss. Imagine a man who's always trying to get approval, whether it's by over-messaging, trying to impress, or constantly apologizing for who he is. When that man chooses to remain silent, she doesn't perceive silence as a loss, but rather as relief. She doesn't feel like she's lost anything because he didn't add anything of value that made her stop and appreciate his presence in the first place. Contrast that with a grounded man who recognizes his own value and doesn't require external validation. His quiet means something, It's not a trick or a game. It shows that he knows he doesn't need to chase after someone who doesn't see his worth. This man possesses inner strength, as his actions or lack thereof garner respect from others. Stoic philosophy teaches us that our worth doesn't come from what other people think of us, but from what we think of ourselves. Have you worked hard to create a life you're proud of? Are you taking care of your body, mind, and passions? Are you forming relationships that make you feel positive instead of ones that drain you? When you focus on becoming the best version of yourself, you cease worrying about whether she notices your silence. Ironically, that's when people start to notice. So if your silence doesn't affect her, don't let it cause you to pout or feel angry. Instead, rise above it. Use it as a motivation to get better, not for her, but for yourself. Ensure your life is so abundant that people notice your absence and cherish your presence. When you strive for less from others and more from yourself, you begin to radiate an unstoppable energy. Focus on increasing your value, not to make her miss you, but to make yourself unshakable. If she doesn't notice, trust me, someone else will. When your silence reflects a life well lived and a man who doesn't need attention to feel worthy, it will speak volumes. Your silence will matter then, not because you wanted it to, but because you've become someone people notice. What is your perspective on developing inner strength and transforming into a person whose quietness conveys a powerful message? If you've ever noticed that you needed to focus on yourself instead of others, share your thoughts in the comments section below. If this speaks to you, just type, "My silence has value," to affirm your journey towards self-worth and growth. Third, you're playing her. Let's keep talking. It's challenging to acknowledge that your silence is merely a strategy to elicit a response, evoke her longing for you, or deceive her into returning. You're still playing her game, even if it feels like you're being brave or strategic. Whenever you question whether she will notice your absence or why she hasn't reached out yet, you're granting her complete control. She's not winning because she's ignoring you. She's winning because you've tied your sense of peace and worth to her response. That's not a position of strength. It's a trap. If your silence stems from your desire for something to happen, it won't work because you're still attached to the outcome. You're waiting for her to text you back to let you know she made a mistake. And if she doesn't, you start to doubt your worth or use more manipulative methods, which only makes her want to be away from you even more. This is not the energy of someone in charge. It's the energy of someone who wants to win a game they didn't need to play in the first place. Imagine that silence wasn't about her at all, but about you. Think about it. Silence can be one of the most powerful tools, but only if it comes from a place of self-respect. Instead of using silence as a tool for control, consider using it as a tool for reconstruction. Stop asking, "Is she thinking about me?" and start asking, "What do I need to do for myself right now?" Real quiet means putting down the phone, giving up the need to know what's going on with her, and putting that energy back into your own life. For example, you could go to the gym, read the book you have been intending to read, and spend time with individuals who inspire you to feel good about yourself. Silence isn't passive. It's a choice to focus on yourself instead of her. Here's the irony. When you really stop caring about how she reacts, that's when she starts to understand why. Because true detachment is rare and powerful, not pretending not to care, but really not caring. Letting go. Those who are at peace with themselves and don't require approval to feel whole attract people. If your silence isn't having the effect you wanted, it's because you're still playing her game. You're still reacting, waiting and hoping. But when you decide to play your own game, stop reacting, waiting and hoping, that's when everything changes. When you regain your power and stop trying to control her, you start focusing on what truly matters: your own growth, happiness, and life. When you do this, you no longer need her reaction at all. That's real freedom, that's true strength, and that's the moment when you truly triumph, not in her game, but in your own. She knows you'll break your fast. She knows you'll break. Eventually, consistency is everything. If your silence is temporary or something you've tried but couldn't maintain, why would she take it seriously? She's seen this pattern before, and she knows that one day you'll text, call, or try to reconnect, and when that happens, the silence you worked so hard to keep will become noise. Usually it's just empty noise. A real Stoic isn't someone who just looks calm and collected. They actually are calm and determined on the inside. Instead of depending on fleeting actions or manipulating emotions, they ground themselves in their principles and inner strength. Do you keep quiet because you value your peace, growth, and dignity? Or are you waiting for her to notice and respond? If it's the latter, she'll see through it. People can tell when you're acting out of desperation or trying to hide something, which is why your silence feels so strange. She perceives her silence as hollow, as it lacks a foundation in reality. Imagine a scenario where a man decides to stop pursuing someone who has been drifting away from him. At first, he feels restless and is always checking his phone to see if she'll notice. But as the days go by, he starts to shift his focus. He reads a book he's been meaning to, gets back in touch with friends, starts working out again, or learns a new skill. His silence isn't about her anymore, it's about him, and that changes him. When your silence comes from a real commitment to yourself, it's strong. The Stoics meant that you have power over your mind, not over outside events. It's about keeping your peace, value your time, and enjoy your life control, not hurting others or playing games. Realizing this will make you strong. But if you waver or let your emotions control your actions and break your silence too soon, it sends a message that you're not in charge, and she knows that you'll eventually give in, rendering your silence useless. How can you change this? First, stop waiting for her response and start building a life that makes you happy, so that her response, or lack thereof, doesn't define your worth. When you do this, your silence will hold significance. It will no longer be a tactic, but rather a testament to your strength, my friend. Follow through. Being patient, and most importantly, being true to yourself, is the kind of silence that gets respect. If this hits home for you, take a moment to think about how you use silence in your life. Is it a way to grow as a person, or do you use it to get a certain response? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Your point of view could inspire someone else. If you're short on words, just type "True silence is strength" to let us know you're committed to building inner strength. We can't wait to hear from you. However, remaining silent without taking any action is akin to a ship without a destination. It doesn't progress or create any ripples. Here's the harsh truth. If you don't alter your feelings during this period, your silence will have no significance. It will simply be a passing of time, and it's likely that she won't even notice, as the dynamic hasn't changed. Think about it this way. Silence becomes powerful only when it serves a purpose. If all you're doing is thinking about what went wrong or hoping she'll understand how valuable you are at some point, then your silence is useless. Silence without self-improvement is just a void. It lacks the weight to make a lasting impression. The question is whether you are making beneficial use of this silence or letting it slip away. Stoics advocated using problems to your advantage. Your silence doesn't bother her because you haven't focused on yourself, which you can control. Now is not the time to do nothing and hope she notices your absence. It's the time to grow and evolve the obstacle. In this case, her distance and lack of reaction aren't the enemy. It's the opportunity, but only if you choose to see it that way. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine that two people in the same situation decide to go silent after a fight or break up. The first guy spends his days glued to his phone, scrolling through her posts, reading old messages, and remembering the fight. He finds himself mired in the past, trapped in a cycle that only he can perceive. The second guy, on the other hand, uses the silence to rebuild himself. He consistently goes to the gym, starts that hobby he's always talked about but never did, and even starts meditating to find inner peace. Over time, he begins to exude a quiet confidence and self-assurance that is independent of her. Which one do you think she's more likely to notice, or better yet, miss? Which one do you think she's more likely to notice, or better yet, miss? When you're working on yourself, it naturally attracts others and sends a powerful message. I value myself enough to keep getting better, with or without your attention. That's when your silence starts to have an effect, not because you're trying to trick her or play games, but because you've turned your attention away from her and toward making your own life more satisfying. That change in energy is what makes silence work. The lack of noise isn't what makes you strong. It's the presence of purpose. And here's the irony. As you stick to this path, her reaction will become less important. You'll be so focused on your own growth that whether or not she notices will feel like secondary information. And that's when your silence starts to have power, when it's no longer about her, when you've created a version of yourself that stands tall, grounded and complete, regardless of her presence. That's what real strength looks like. She doesn't feel any sense of, if your silence doesn't move her, it means that something is missing in your dynamic, or maybe in how you've positioned yourself in her life. If she doesn't feel that void, it's not necessarily because she's indifferent or cold-hearted. It could be because you haven't left a strong enough impression of who you are, what you bring to the table, and the values you live by. Inner strength enables us to comprehend the ancient philosophy of Stoicism, which focuses on character development. It instructs us to shift our focus from controlling others to becoming someone who easily earns respect and admiration. Consider what qualities she's missing in you. Is it your ability to listen without judging? It could be your steady presence during challenging times, or the way you always make her feel understood and safe. If none of these things stand out, your silence might feel more like a passing breeze than the sudden loss of warmth on a cold day. Take a moment to think about the kind of presence you've built in her life. Think of someone who has left a lasting impression on you, whether it was a mentor, a close friend, or even a past relationship. People likely remembered their absence because they brought something irreplaceable, such as a depth of character or a consistent presence. There was a certain energy that persisted even when they were not physically present. The right use of silence isn't about controlling someone. It's about letting them see what they value in you. But here's the Stoic twist. While you can't force someone to miss you, you can strive to become someone who truly merits their absence. Be mindful of your actions, values, and presence in her life and life. Even in silence, the presence of a man who is strong in his beliefs, stable in his emotions, and sure of his path is palpable. Consider two scenarios. In the first, a man becomes silent, but his absence is barely perceptible due to his inconsistent, unreliable, or simply boring behavior. In the second, a reliable, self-assured, and thoughtful man retreats. The second man leaves a noticeable gap. He leaves a noticeable gap not because he seeks recognition, but because his sincerity and affect linger like a beloved perfume. If your silence isn't making a difference right now, it's not the end of the journey. Rather, it's a signpost guiding you towards personal growth. Adopt the Stoic philosophy of taking charge of what you can, your thoughts, your deeds, and the way you carry yourself. Being someone who exudes value without having to shout about it will let you know that you've done your part to become a man of depth of character and quiet strength. Having the kind of presence we've been talking about starts with wanting to grow and understand more, which you've shown by reading this far. Please tell me what you liked most about this message and how it reminded you of your life. Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments section below, or if you don't know what to say, just type, "I'm building my quiet strength." Your thoughts and reflections could help other people on their journey as well. The more she knows about you, the less important your silence is. If she can guess what you're going to do next, it doesn't make her curious or make her wonder. It's just another step in a routine she already knows. If everything you do is transparent, where is the element of mystery? Is there any space for her to contemplate or sense your presence? Epictetus said that we suffer not from events, but from how we judge them. This means that your silence's impact depends on your actions, not just your silence. Are you really calm, centered and sure of yourself, or are you using silence to get a reaction? If your silence is predictable or feels like an attempt to manipulate, it will fail. It means that you are not using silence as a tool. Picture this. If you consistently text her in the morning and then decide to be quiet for a day, she may initially notice. However, if she anticipates your eventual check-in, your silence becomes insignificant, as it lacks any genuine mystery. You've taught her to expect your pattern, even when you think you're breaking it. Now let's change the script. Rather than using silence as a strategy, adopt an emotional neutrality. This isn't about shutting her out or playing games. It's about mastering yourself. Picture a calm sea, steady and unshaken by storms. When you reach that level of emotional control, your silence becomes a natural byproduct of your self-respect, not a deliberate strategy. That's what creates intrigue. She doesn't know what to expect because you're not reacting to her. You're grounded in your own presence. Let's say she pulls back or becomes distant. The instinct might be to respond by pulling away too, thinking that your silence will somehow teach her a lesson, but that's not what Stoicism teaches. A Stoic would remain calm and composed, not allowing her actions to dictate their peace of mind. This isn't about indifference. It's about maintaining your inner balance by being unreadable in a calm and genuine way. You show that you're not playing into the emotional tug-of-war. Mystery isn't about manipulation, it's about self-control. When you can sit with your silence without expecting a reaction, that's when it becomes impactful. It's no longer a tool, but a reflection of your own growth. Instead of being predictable, you become intriguing, not because you're trying to be, but because you've stopped chasing validation. And that, my friend, is where the power truly lies. So the next time you feel tempted to go silent just to make her miss, you ask yourself, is this silence a reflection of my calm strength? Or am I hoping she notices? Because when you embody the first, that's when your silence speaks volumes. Number 8, you haven't communicated your standards. You see, silence isn't a replacement for boundaries. If you've never taken the time to communicate your standards or expectations in the relationship, your silence becomes meaningless. Imagine trying to enforce a law in a town where no one ever announced the rules. It wouldn't work. You need clarity to know what you stand for and what you expect. The same goes for relationships. Silence only serves to remind people of your boundaries, not to replace them. For instance, consider a scenario where someone has repeatedly transgressed your boundaries, yet you haven't explicitly expressed what you require or will not tolerate. Instead, you pull away silently, hoping they'll get it. They have no idea what they should get. Your quiet doesn't mean anything as a clear standard, so it's like yelling into the void. No one hears you. The Stoics they hold the belief that an individual who understands and adheres to their values remains unwavering. When you set your boundaries, you're acting with purpose. You're saying, "This is who I am, and this is what I stand for." That kind of clarity cuts through all the noise. Your silence has power because it's based in something real. Without that foundation, silence is just silence. Think about it this way. Being quiet is only one part of a plan. If you've made it clear what's important to you, whether it's honoring honesty or respecting loyalty, then your silence sends. When those boundaries are crossed, it's a signal that says, "I have." Zrenia. I've said what I think, and now I'm letting my deeds speak louder. But if you've never said anything, your silence can't make something stronger that isn't there. So the next time you want to pull back and let silence do the talking, remember this. Ask yourself, have I made my goals clear? If the answer is no, go to that point. Talk when it's important. If you clearly define your boundaries, your actions will follow. Instead of explaining yourself or justifying your actions, be honest and clear about what you expect and won't tolerate. The excellent thing about this approach is that it fits with Stoic principles. It's not about reacting or getting upset. It's about standing firm in your values and not letting other people's actions change you. You don't have to fight or beg for respect. Just show up, tell the truth, and live it for a long time. This level of clarity endows your silence with power, as people understand its significance. Remember that quiet without rules is just absence, but silence with clear rules is presence. If your silence isn't creating the desired impact, perhaps it's time to return to the fundamentals. That's the kind of stillness that commands respect without saying a word. After considering how powerful setting standards is, speak up for what you believe in. Let your silence show how strong you are as a person. Please let me know what you think. Have you ever been in a situation where silence didn't get the message across? Or maybe you've seen how setting clear lines can make a difference. Let's keep the conversation going in the comments, where you can share your thoughts or just type. If standards cause you to remain silent, it indicates that this message resonates deeply with you. Your point of view could be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Your quiet isn't enough. Your silence isn't enough. Are you using this silence to reflect on yourself and realign your values? Or are you screaming into the void, hoping she'll notice? The difference lies in your intent. If you're just running away hoping she'll follow you, it comes across as passive and even manipulative. That's not strength, that's insecurity, and people could tell that the Stoics knew this deeply because they didn't waste time on meaningless gestures. They did things on purpose. If you're going to be quiet, do it with reason and a sense of purpose. Make it matter. Take the time to improve your mind, your emotions, and even your body. Consider what you need from yourself and life, not just her. Silence should be a chance to grow, not a way to control you. Following a breakup, two individuals remain silent. The first one just waits, constantly looking at their phone and counting the days until they get a message. Their silence is empty and full of worry and annoyance. The second person, on the other hand, uses this time to work on their fitness, reconnect with their hobbies, and explore their passions. They learn from the experience, become more emotionally resilient, and become a stronger, more grounded version of themselves. When they return to the room, which one do you think she will notice the most? She will notice the person who has improved, not the one who has been waiting. No matter who hears it, your silence should say something powerful. I am secure in myself. I am growing. That kind of presence speaks stronger than words. It's a silence that doesn't demand her attention, but earns respect when it's broken. And here's the Stoic. It's not about her, it's about you. When you approach it that way, you cease worrying about her reaction, and whether or not she does, It becomes less significant than the fact that you're evolving into someone you admire. So, what is your silence telling you right now? If it feels empty, it's time to shift your focus, look inward, and realign. Don't hope she will notice. Instead, give yourself something worth noticing. That's how you turn passive silence into a purposeful transformation. That's how you reclaim your power. Number 10. Steps to take next. What should you do next? The answer is simple. Focus on becoming the kind of man who thrives on regard regardless of external acknowledgement. This isn't about her, it's about you. Start small, but commit to the gym. Not because you want her to see your body changes, but because building strength will remind you of your strength. Improve your money. To make your life independent and in your own hands, not to show off your success, work on your attitude. As the Stoics knew, controlling your thoughts is the key to true freedom. When a man's feelings do not control him, he becomes truly unstoppable. A man who was deeply hurt by a woman he loved, she left without looking back, and for weeks he wallowed in pain, hoping she'd come around one day. He realized he was wasting his life waiting for someone who wasn't thinking about him, so he decided to take control. He started running every morning to clear his head, not for her, but for himself. He signed up for classes to advance his career, not to prove anything, but to secure his future. He immersed himself in books learning about philosophy and self-discipline and discovered a calm within himself he didn't know existed months later when she finally noticed his absence and reached out. He had changed so much that he didn't even recognize the man he'd been when he wanted her back. She noticed, but by then it didn't matter anymore. That's the kind of transformation we're talking about here. The goal isn't to make her miss you. The goal is to grow into the kind of man who doesn't need her acknowledgement to feel whole when you focus on your own growth. You realize that external validation, whether it comes from her or anyone else, has no real power over you. You become unshakable. Now, you might be thinking, what if she never notices? What if this silence was a waste? The truth is, it doesn't matter. This is not about her. This is about taking all that energy you've been pouring into, wondering what she's thinking and redirecting it into becoming the best version of self. When you do this, something remarkable happens. You stop measuring your worth by her reactions, and when you reach that point, everything shifts. She might notice or she might not, but by then you'll be too busy building your life to care. Remember that a Stoic man does well in any situation. Your silence isn't a way to get her back. It's a chance to step back and think about your path. Allow her to pursue her desires. Channel your energy towards creating a life that brings you meaning and fulfillment. When you focus on growth, you don't just get through these times of uncertainty, you transcend them. And when you do, the question won't be whether your silence affected her. The question will be whether you want her in your life anymore. Taking charge of your story is powerful, so build for yourself instead of her. Trust me, the benefits will be greater than any care she could give you. That's the power of silence. As we've talked about today, conclusion isn't in what it expects from other people, but in what it builds within you. If your silence isn't having the effect you wanted, it's a sign that you need to turn your attention inward. Use this time to grow. Reflection and self-change. Remember that a Stoic man doesn't judge his worth by what other people say about him. He lives by controlling himself and accepting his inner strength. The lesson here is simple. Don't wait for her to notice. Build a life that earns respect whether she sees it or not. When your silence is grounded in purpose, honesty, and self-respect, it resonates more powerfully than any words could. Do you agree with this message? If so, please let me know in the comments below. What will you do today to put your attention back on your own growth? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please like this video, It helps other people find these ideas, and share it with anyone you think could benefit from it. Finally, the videos on screen teach how to control your thoughts and relationships. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next one. Don't give up and keep building.